What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about the pros and the cons of the Canon R mirrorless camera. Even though I think this camera is amazing, we'll talk about all the issues that it does have and the features that I like. So let's jump into it. Should we talk about the pros or the cons first? Let's go with the pros. So the Canon R comes in at such a small form factor. It's not like the 1DX, it's not massive, it's not super heavy, relatively small and compact. And me personally, I really like this. And when you're traveling, it pretty much can fit anywhere, especially if you have a really small lens on, like the Canon RF35mm 1.8. This lens is like super small. It's pretty inconspicuous. Like if you're walking around with this lens and camera setup, nobody's gonna think otherwise that you're shooting something professional with this camera. It's not too much bigger than a point and shoot. The next thing up is the ability to attach EF glass using a native Canon adapter, as well as using the RF glass, which is honestly amazing, and I can't wait to get my hands on some more EF glass. You may already have EF glass, or you have a friend that has EF glass. Chances are you know somebody with some sort of EF glass, so you could borrow some of theirs. This camera honestly has amazing autofocus. The dual pixel autofocus system is absolutely mind-blowing, and especially with the Canon R, you have eye autofocus during video. So right now there's a little box on my eye, which is this eye, and it's focusing the camera to make sure my eyes are in focus, and even though I'm shooting at f11, but nonetheless, this camera has an amazing autofocus system, and even when you're tapping on the back of the screen to like rack focus, it does it in a way that's not like jittery. It's very fluid and looks like you're manually focusing the camera. This camera also has C-Log. I honestly think this is absolutely amazing. It allows you to get more creative with your videos, pull as much dynamic range out of your video as possible, and allows you to get really creative with the colors and pull as much detail as possible. Before using something like C-Log that's built in, I would have to use either the neutral profile, try to build my own profile, or I would have something installed called Cine Style, and that would be like a different camera profile that you could use. But now that Canon has this built in, especially with their LUTs, I think this is super clutch. The batteries in this camera are absolutely amazing. They've been in multiple other Canon cameras. I've used them in my 5D Mark IV, 5D Mark III. They've just been around forever. These cameras are tanks. They're perfect. They last forever. This camera does use them, and it also lasts forever. On a normal day shoot, I would only bring 2 of these batteries. I only have 2 batteries. They last forever, unlike the Canon RP batteries, but we're not going to talk about that today. So if you are using EF glass with the Canon R, one of the adapters is a neutral density filter that's built into the actual adapter that'll allow you to essentially step up to something like a cinema camera that has these NDs built in. And I honestly think these are amazing. Instead of putting it on the front of your lens where it could get dirty or damaged, it's actually closer, so you're not really ruining the optics of your actual glass. And the fact that it's always going to be built into the adapter, which I think is honestly amazing. I really want to get my hands on one of these, but they are extremely expensive. The colors in this camera don't look bad at all. Canon colors are amazing, and we all know this. That's why everyone raves on about this, but straight out of camera, the colors don't look bad. So it takes very minimal tweaking to make them look good, if any. A huge perk coming with this camera is the tilty flippy screen that I'm actually using to film myself. It's on this side, that it just makes filming yourself in like YouTube kind of videos amazing. Even if you're trying to get a super close down to the ground shot, you can flip the screen out and you can see yourself, or different angles, especially if you're shooting photos. If you want to get like a really high up angle photo, like on other cameras, you kind of just have to like guess. Like you just have to throw it up there, shoot it. With this, you can at least angle it down and see what you're shooting. So since this camera has a million different autofocus points, it does have a screen focus. So when you do bring it up to your eye, instead of having the little dial which you have to like either hold or like keep clicking to get the focus point where you want it, you can actually touch the actual screen and drag it like you're touching your iPhone or Android phone, and you can select the actual autofocus point that you really want. Those are my pros for this camera. Now on to the cons, which I'm kind of nitpicking at this point, so let's jump in. The first thing up is, as every Canon owner will say, is the no full frame 4K is very disappointing, as well as like the no 1080 120 frames a second. It's very disappointing, but it's still usable in my opinion. For me personally, I don't shoot in 4K. I use the 1080 and I upscale to 4K just because it's giving you such a high bit rate that it still looks good. It looks amazing in 4K. I only really use 4K if I'm shooting something that's like really far away, or if I want to get the extra little bit of detail. The next thing up, as a Canon shooter, we're gonna say that there's no IBIS. What can I say? I wish there was IBIS. It does come with electronically stabilized. I mean, it's something, but I wish there was IBIS built in. I'm not a huge fan of the mode selector on the Canon R. I honestly wish they would have went with something more like the Canon RP, which you have like the little knob that you can just flip over to all your custom settings. With this little dial, it's like you have to press it down, then you have to hit the info button to go over to video mode, then you have to scroll through the settings for that to one of your custom profiles. With the Canon RP, I would just, pop it over to the custom 1, custom 2, custom 3, and be on about my day. For me, it takes me out of that creative zone and just makes it a little bit more difficult to switch to like, a B-roll scene to a talking head scene like I'm doing right now. This one isn't a huge deal for me, but I really do wish that you were able to charge the camera through the USB-C while filming. This honestly would make this camera such a beautiful perfect camera, especially for those long exposures. Maybe you want to keep the camera open for a long period of time, or doing like a photo montage of like shooting for maybe 4, 5, 6 days. I honestly think that would be amazing, especially if you're traveling and you don't want to carry 10 batteries with. So those are just the cons that I personally have. I'm really trying to nitpick and bring up some cons. I honestly really love this camera. It's definitely an upgrade from my 5D Mark IV, and it's smaller, it's lighter, it's easier to travel with, has eye autofocus, all these great small features. I'm just drawing out some of the cons that I really do think this camera has. That's all I have for this video. If you did like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It does help. And until the next video, peace.